This lesson is on the violin and bow parts. Before I teach you how to play the violin, I'm first going to teach you the names for the different parts of the violin and bow. I will be referring to many of these in later lectures, and I want you to be able to follow along. So let's start with the violin. I'll work my way from bottom to top, covering the most important parts. So down here at the bottom, we have the chin rest. This is where your chin, or sometimes more like your cheek, depending on what's comfortable for you, rests while you play. The name says it all. Right next to that, we have the tailpiece. This anchors the strings at the bottom of the violin, and is also where your fine tuners are attached. Might as well cover the fine tuners next. They sit on the tailpiece here. You notice that I have only one of them on my violin, but many instruments, particularly student instruments, will have four, one for each string. I will go over how to use them to tune your instrument in the lecture on tuning your violin. Next up, we have the bridge. Your strings rest on the bridge in order to make the nice sweet sound that we associate with the violin. Your bridge should be straight across as well as vertically. Make sure that it is not bent from the pressure of the strings. Next, we have the strings themselves. So working our way from lowest pitch, which is the thickest string, to highest pitch, the thinnest string, we have the G string, the D string, the A string, and finally the E string. Next up, we have the F holes. So these are where your beautiful sweet sound comes out of. Up next, the fingerboard. So this long wooden black piece here is the fingerboard. It is where you will place the fingers of your left hand onto the strings in order to change the pitch of the string to play different notes. The neck of the violin is here, and is where your left hand holds the violin when playing in the lower positions, which is what we will be doing in this course. After that, we have the nut, which is this little piece here that sits at the top of the fingerboard. From there, we have the scroll, so this whole part here. And in the scroll, we have the tuning pegs, which are used for larger tuning adjustments when tuning your violin. So that's it for the violin. Let's move on to the bow. So we'll go from bottom to top with the bow as well. Starting at the bottom here, we have the screw. This is used to tighten the hairs on the bow. You'll want to tighten the hairs each time you play and loosen them when you've finished. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Next, we have the frog. This is where you hold on to the bow with your right hand. Then we have the bow hair. So the bow hair is actually horsehair, and it's important not to touch it too much with your hands because the grease from our skin can get the hairs dirty, and then you'll have to replace them sooner. Then we have the stick of the bow, and finally at the top we have the tip. So now that we've covered the parts of the bow, I just want to go back to talking about tightening the hairs with the screw. You want to make sure that the hairs are tight enough that they can make a good sound on the string, but not so tight that the stick begins to warp. So you can see that my stick has a nice curve to it, but if it gets tightened too much, it straightens out. So make sure that doesn't happen when you're tightening your bow. And if you look out for it, you should be able to have your bow tightened to just the right amount. Now I want to talk about two extra pieces. The first is for the bow. This is called rosin, and it's solid now. I just have a small piece here. When rubbed onto the bow hairs, it turns into a sticky powder that helps the bow hairs stick to the string in order to produce a better sound. Rosin is typically applied each time you play, and it often comes included with your student violin. Lastly, we have a shoulder rest. Most violinists use something to help support the violin when they are playing. Mine is a Kun rest, K-U-N, and I find it to be very comfortable, although there are many other kinds on the market. It attaches to the violin on the back, here and here. Many people also use a sponge instead of a shoulder rest, and they attach it to their instrument with a rubber band. So try and find out whichever is the most comfortable for you. So now you know the names of the violin and bow parts, and you'll be able to follow along much more easily in the upcoming lectures.